Hi, my name is Tim. I'm your Cinema Contrarian. I would like to discuss with you today the fate of the so-called Zack Snyder Cut of Justice League. Now, it was recently revealed to us by Josh Dickey that Zack Snyder was actually fired from Warner Brothers approximately 4 months earlier than the cover story about him departing due to the suicide of his daughter. And this would make it a mere 3 months after the end of principal photography. Now, when you look back at Batman v Superman, the film was released 15 months after the end of principal photography. And I think there's a good reason for that. Zack Snyder's editing style is very hands-on, it's very distinct, it's very much his own. Regardless of how many editors he has working under him, I believe he sits there and pretty much personally edits the entire film himself. Again, it comes down to his specific style and how unique it is to him. And I think it's very much a kind of personal frame accurate kind of editing that he does. Very hands-on, very labor intensive. It takes a long time. If you've ever edited video, then you might know it takes a long time to get that kind of precision and the kind of style that he gets. So if we take it as true that he was fired from Warner Brothers 4 months earlier than we previously thought, I think we can speculate a couple of ways that that might have gone down. We know that there was arguments in the Warner Brothers top brass about letting Zack go when Batman v Superman did not perform the way that they hoped that it would. So let's say that the vote in the upper echelons of Warner Brothers was 4 to keep him, 4 to let him go, or maybe it was 5 to keep him and 4 to let him go. Again, this is just speculation, but let's say that there was a pretty even split on what they should do with him. And then he delivers. I don't think after 3 months of principal photography, he could have even given them an entire film. Even a really long cut, like a 3 or 3.5 hour cut. I'm sure that the only thing he had completed were a few scenes, and probably they would have been scenes that were VFX heavy, therefore requiring the inclusion of animatics where the special effects would later be put in. So again, let's imagine that he turned in a few of those 3 months after photography ended, and the top brass at Warner looked at it. Now, I can imagine this going one of two ways, or maybe both ways for all we know. But let's say that he showed it to them, and they didn't like it because they said, this is too much like Batman v Superman. We asked you to do something different. And Zack Snyder said, no, I don't want to do anything different. This is my vision for the film. Or he felt like he had done it differently enough already, and they decided to just go ahead without him. Either way, I think it's clear that after he had edited the film for 3 months, that's when they decided that they were not going to get from him what they wanted. Either because he refused or because he was unable to follow what they were looking for. So if he was let go at that time, there's no way in my mind that he had finished editing the film, even to like a rough cut. It's 3 months after photography ended. Batman v Superman had 15 months of post-production. And I think that Zack Snyder was cutting that film for at least 12, maybe 14 of those months. So in 3 months, there's no way that he had finished cutting the film in any way that would be recognizable. And from that, I'm forced to conclude that I don't think that there is a Zack Snyder cut of this film. Even a 3.5 hour cut. I just don't think he had the time to do it in that short amount of time. Now, Josh Dickey could be wrong. We don't have any confirmation from Zack Snyder or from Warner Brothers that says that this is true, but let's look at what happened. Zack Snyder didn't show up for the premiere of a movie that bears his name. And if he had really stepped away from Warner Brothers in order to mourn the passing of his daughter, I think he certainly would have made a point of being at the premiere, if for no other reason than to thank his cast and his crew for continuing the film without him. The only way him not being at the premiere makes sense is if he had actually been fired. And Josh Dickey gives us a timeline of when that firing occurred. So to me, this seems much more likely to be the case than the Warner Brothers cover story. And the fact that Warner Brothers is kind of secretive about their behind-the-scenes machinations makes me think that the cover story is suspect as well. Now, I am just speculating. I don't have any inside knowledge of this, but logically speaking, I don't think that Zack Snyder stepped away from this project voluntarily because of events in his life. I think that Josh Dickey is right, that he was fired. And I also think that the timeline, I don't think there's any reason to think that his timeline is wrong, especially considering that, Zack Snyder was off the film 4 months after that. So, yeah, my conclusion is I don't think there is a Snyder Cut. And even, I'm sure all of us knew that if there was a Snyder Cut, that it would have been a Snyder Cut that was loaded with animatics. Probably would have been really long. I would guess 3.5 to 4 hours. But that would have been a Snyder Cut with 7 months of editing under his belt, if you count the 3 months he had plus the 3 months up until the cover story. That would have been 7 months worth of cutting, and I think he would have had the film in long but decent shape. After 3 months, I don't think he had much at all. But maybe you disagree. If so, leave a comment below. I seriously considered wearing a disguise for this because I don't want to be the bearer of what I think is bad news. But I have to call it the way I see it, and that's kind of how I see it. So I want to thank you for tuning in, especially if it's your first time. Please check out my other videos. If you see a link for a Patreon page below, then please consider becoming a Patreon supporter of mine. And otherwise, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching. Have a good one. Bye.